I guess, Lisa, since you're the one that actually started with it, maybe we start there. Like, you know, I have had the privilege of being introduced to you by just picking up the phone and calling you, and then creating a sense of who you are by just the journey we've taken for the last 3 to 4 years. I'm curious because I don't know a lot of your colleagues, how would a colleague introduce you to the Future Horizons workshop?
Okay, great, Sharon. So here's what I did. I called 3 of my colleagues 15 minutes before this, and I said, how would you all introduce me? I've got a call in half an hour. So tell me. So I'm going to do a little bit of looking at notes when they did it. So Celia said, this is my friend, Lisa Brush. And she said, and I would start out with friend, because I think that's a really important aspect of the relationship that we've built. I wouldn't have said that in the very beginning, but this is my friend, Lisa. And she's dedicated to helping improve the ways in which we can all collaborate to protect our land and water for the betterment of all creatures. She wants to raise up our communities. And then she said, this is where I would say, and Lisa Brush is the CEO and founder of the Stewardship Network. So she would get in that little detail there that she felt like if this is an important part about that. But she's also a ton of fun to be with. She has great energy. She likes to quilt. She's very creative, has a great sense of humor. And she's on a short list of my 20 favorite people in the world, which includes also my family. So then I called my second colleague, and he said, I would say she's low energy, she's judgmental, she's not able to retain a lot, she's a lot of talk and no action, she's very difficult. So then he said, no, wait a minute. Okay, what I would really say, and he talked a lot about the persistence and the longevity. So he said, you know, she's the kind of person who stupidly stays with something in a really good way. So she's also, she's a risk taker and she's entrepreneurial. So we went on to have other qualities, you know, mobilizing and catalyzing. She's facilitative and communicative and listening. And then I called the last colleague about this, and he said, have him call me. I'd love to introduce you. And then he also said, the problem with this is that you won't say a lot of these things that I would say about you. So hence the reason that I called my colleagues and asked them. So he said, you know, he would introduce me by title in the Stewardship Network, but he would say, she's so much more. She embodies all the good things that the network is about. She's our spiritual leader. She's the most positive person I know. You know, one of the stories I love is that your mom said she would wake you up when you were a kid and you would roll over and the first thing you would do is smile. And the idea that he would say the glass is half full or half empty. And Lisa would say, what do you mean? The glass is nearly full and it's going to be full. It's going to be full very soon. And so he also said that when he was going through his low points that they were always better after talking to me. And so that, you know, one of the qualities about Lisa, is that she listens and affirms without offering suggestions. He also said she's the least competitive. And then he said, no, you're not though, because you really, you know, you've played sports at highest national levels. You've done all that. So it's not that you're not competitive, but you're one of the most collaborative people I know, and that you're one of the easiest people to collaborate with, and you make it very safe for others to do that, even when it feels scary for them.
Who do you seek your own mentorship from? I mean, like, you have a broad array of colleagues. I'm curious.
So you are my mentor. I consider Sean, who's here, Devin, I consider you my mentor as well. I have so many mentors and so many people in my life that I learn from. And I have had times when a volunteer will find the Stewardship Network, or a person will find the Stewardship Network and say, I want to volunteer with you, and we'll go meet at a coffee shop. We used to go meet at coffee shops, and we would talk about things. And then turns out she's also a coach, and she said, can I coach you? I'm like, oh my God, absolutely. I would love to learn. So the other thing about me is that I love to learn. And so any opportunity that I have to learn from people, there are so many people that I can call up in all of our fields. I mean, all of our collaborating well colleagues, I also consider mentors. But the one thing that maybe I'll share, because if I even start to share any single name of a current mentor, I'm leaving out 75 other people. But maybe one of my very first, most meaningful, but then there I go out leaving out Roy Starks, but was Howard Brown, who was a professor of mine at Wesleyan University, where I went to school in Connecticut. And he was one of Bucky Fuller's proteges. So really what he not only taught in the program that I was an undergrad in called Science in Society. And so it was very much a liberal arts college, and so a liberal arts degree, but it was also, I loved that I got to be part of this interdisciplinary major called Science and Society. And Howard was a professor in that department, but he also ran a consulting firm that was called something like Resources Planning and Management, I think, but it was all about doing more with less. So really taking, so many of Bucky Fuller's principles and sharing them. And then through that relationship with Howard, I got to know a number of other Buckminster Fuller proteges and learn from them. And so I would say that, if I were to point back to some early element of mentorship, that might be a really important one.
Right. Well, we're talking about a lot of the people in your life and those that have helped kind of influence your own thinking. How about the landscapes? I mean, we can think about landscapes as we learn from just our experience. For you, do you have a landscape that you feel the greatest sense of place with? And what would you say you learned from being in that landscape?
Yeah, so for me, I would say there's not any single landscape. So I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I grew up playing on the banks of the Ohio River and the muddy, muddy, muddy Ohio River, where you would sink up to your thighs in the mud and pull your leg out and just playing on the banks there and swimming in that warm, muddy bath of a river. And so I grew up there. I also grew up camping, during spring breaks. I'd go with friends and camp in North Carolina or the Smokies or the mountains of Tennessee and Kentucky, where I grew up. And then I lived in Connecticut for a while, and I've been living in Michigan for the last 20 plus years. And so, certainly then the Great Lakes, and you just can't live here and not have it be the Great Lakes. And there are amazing places. And I do always feel like there's just that way to be able to take solace in feeling rooted in whatever that place that is, and open to the crown and the sky and all that is there as well. And so I've had a number of landscapes, but there's not a single one that I could say, because then I would be so limited by not being able to appreciate all the others. So yeah, there are many that have been important.
So, you were talking about, your early work in the science part, and I got to know you through our conversations about language and our conversations about values. And as we've been reflecting upon our work, it is informed by both science and values.
Yeah.
And for you, what values do you feel you bring to this work and your approach? And as we look to the future, what values do you think are critical to ensure that we remain relevant and able to work at scale in the way we're hoping to?
Yeah, so for me, probably the root of my value, and then I'll give you value words, but is really my belief in people and my belief in the power of groups of people to make incredibly transformative, impactful change when they can be authentic with each other. And so, then if I were to put words to some of that, value words, it would certainly be integrity and authenticity. And I think authenticity is one of the just really most important things. And then the other one along with that is compassion. And the thing that I've always said is that we can only be who we are, and why don't we just be that? And that is enough for us to do that. I also think there's a part of love, joy, and enthusiasm that is also part of it. I love, so the Stewardship Network holds an annual gathering called the Science, Practice, and Art of Restoring Native Ecosystems. So again, that value of it's not purely science, it's not purely practice, and it's not purely art, but it's really when we bring all of those together. And one of the things that I was struck by the first several years of doing this event with 300 to 500 people is that our keynotes, who are all scientists in that word, all spoke about love. And I was like, thank you. Thank you. That is so awesome for you to be infusing that energy to this group of people. And so I think that is an important part of it.
Well, thinking about kind of the values and language, just the name of the organization you lead, the Stewardship Network. I mean, when you first started that, what was the intention around choosing those two words together?
Yeah.
And thinking about now, as you've grown in this work, do they still represent where you feel that the field is growing, or have you had thoughts around just those two words together?
Yeah. So when I first started this work, it was around bringing people together to care, right? And so stewardship and network were very much it, and they've held water over the last 22 years, and we really did intentionally choose that. We wanted people to know, I mean, even I'll talk about this in just a sec, but the concept of a network. And so again, it's that belief in people that we can do more and that we need a network, that the problems that we're facing right now are wicked problems. It's not the point source pollution. It's not the, I don't know what, that one single line of thinking or one single expert can point us towards the right solution. These are complex problems that we're facing that are wicked, that really are going to take us all being able to bring our best selves to the table. And so I think it really does still resonate very much so. And the stewardship part of it. And the other thing that I was going to say is when we first started it, we had what we called clusters. So we are a network of networks in a way. And so these, what we are now calling collaborative conservation communities, I didn't want to call them chapters, because that's not what they were. And typically in a chapter-led organization, you have these principles that you need to hand down, and then you need to follow all these things. But the idea that it was something different, it was something that people didn't know what it was. And so just really important for people to understand that it's about them coming up with, what are their solutions. Sharon, at the event that you and I first met in person at, I remember we sat out on a sidewalk and talked. And one of the things that I heard that was said in one of the, as people were grappling with this idea of how do, we have typically been the experts, but then what is this collaborative conservation? How do we do this? And I heard somebody say, what I found if I really listened is that the community knew 70% of the solution. And I just sat there and smiled. I'm like, of course they do.
So let's take your thoughts around wicked problems, or like the complex problems. If we were to say, Lisa Brush, we're going to give you whatever support you need to take on something you've always wanted to do in this moment in time, your big idea, like in this field, what is it, what are one of the things you've always wanted to do, or you believe we should do in this work, that you either haven't had the resources, the time, the collegial support? Okay, I'm just opening that big door for you, Lisa.
Yeah. Okay, so for me, I've been doing this specific collaborative conservation work, collaborative stewardship work, stewardship network work for 22 plus years. And in doing that work, one of the things that I seek to do with our organization and with our team is bring the resources that people need in order to do that. Sometimes that's simply a platform to hang, that's a rough framing to hang the collaboration on. That's that backbone support that people need. Sometimes it's tools. We're a land trust and land conservancy. We have an office. We've been about protection, and now we're about stewardship, but we've got a tiny little office. We have no place to put shovels. And so we provide solutions to those kinds of things. Sometimes it's just knowledge. We don't know about prescribed fire. Can you teach us? Can you connect us with people who do? We often do a lot of pass-through money to organizations through granting. We have reputations with funders. We are able to package proposals so that they're more compelling, so that we can put together what might be one or two or three disparate projects that really wouldn't be enough, but because we're a network, we can bring them together. And so probably now realistically, it's got to be 7 years to say, but I started to think, I want us to become the Stewardship Network and Fund, because I think that what I'm seeing is that funders don't necessarily understand this work. So I've heard things like, as I'm talking to funders, they'll say things like, boy, you are exactly what we want to fund, but we don't have a bucket for you. Or I've heard them say, there are so many environmental projects, we don't know how to determine which ones are good and which ones are not, and which ones are more important or more strategic. And I say, well, we do. And so I started quietly vetting this idea, because I'm like, this is just what I see from my vantage point. And again, kind of that, what do you see? Is that I think there are resources out there, and I know that there are people doing really good work who could do amazing things with these dollars. So I kind of quietly started vetting this, like, okay, Sharon, I've just met you, laugh me out of the room. Tell me, oh my God, Lisa, you have no idea, it's already done. Like, we've already solved this problem. Tell me you can't do it. Tell me, just tell me. Like, if this is not right, tell me, laugh me out of the room. And so I didn't get that. I got people saying, oh my God, I just got chills running up my spine. That would be amazing. I got people saying, really? That would be so cool. I got people saying, so again, this is about stewardship. So this is not about the sexy protection for all time, but this is about taking care of our investments that we've made in these really important landscapes. And I got people saying, if you can crack that nut, that would be so amazing. And these are people who, I won't name names, but these are people who have been at this and who do this. So if I could have that, that's the big thing that I'm trying to put in place, the rest of the organization, so that it can continue to do the amazing work that the Stewardship Network does with our team, so that I can actually try to pursue that and then begin to funnel this money down to on-the-ground projects where people can learn from each other and where it really is a network, and it's not disparate grants that are done from one place to another, but it really is the network, like you all just did with the Catalyst Fund recipients yesterday, that you created a network of.
Clearly, Lisa, you're a deep thinker. And I think that one of the things I have really enjoyed in our journey together is how you pull in and connect various thoughts and ideas from people as we think about our next generation of stewards, whether they be mature in age or young, coming out of college, or just basically exploring in their high school years. What advice would you give them as they think about, our work and taking and amplifying their work at a scale that continues to make the impacts we need in today's changing world?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, one of the things that I would start with is, especially for young people, is you have a place. There is a place here for you. One of the things that I actually do say to young people who are interested in this work, who come and talk to me, I say, here's a really funny kind of curveball for you. But if you would have any interest in getting good at raising money and becoming a development person and doing that, and I can talk to you about what that field is and what that would mean, you would be able to make a tremendous influence in this field. So that is one of the things that I say to them, which is also kind of, it's kind of interesting. And then the other is that, so not only do you have a place at the table, but there's the authenticity part of this, that is a get to know yourself, so that as you are in these cross-boundary collaborations and stewardship and listening to the land, and there's no single right answer. We could be doing stewardship work and then we need to make a pivot. And so how can you be flexible enough to pivot and not see that as any kind of weakness in terms of what we were doing isn't working anymore, or we now know this and so we need to pivot. So there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of understanding groups and understanding people in that way. I also would probably talk about, that I've talked to you about conflict wisdom, and I love to see that that's now spreading, but that really also that to view conflict as a place to be wise in and not a place to be afraid of, and that we really need to be able to have difficult conversations, and we need to be able to be open to hearing somebody say, you stepped on my toe, and not say, no, I didn't, or I didn't mean to, or whatever that is, and just say, thank you for telling me, I'm sorry. And also being able to say to somebody, hey, you're stepping on my toe. And so just a little bit of that, kind of how to be in difficult conversations, I think will help us get through to some of the places that we need to go. So I don't know if that's the kind of thing that you're thinking about, but.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I very much appreciated about our work together is you very much encourage bringing the whole person, right? It's being a scientist, being a collaborator, being someone who is comfortable with conflict. I mean, it's bringing your whole person. And so we're hoping in this convening or set of convenings that everyone will be encouraged to bring their whole person. So with that in mind, what would you hope to be able to gain from being a part of a group of individuals who respectively bring experience in a large number of areas in this field? So what are you hoping from Future Horizons for you?
So first of all, I'll say, I don't know partly, but there's a part of, I'm so looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to gaining a whole new set of mentors. I'm looking forward to learning from people. I'm also looking forward to that. Yesterday, I talked with the Catalyst Fund folks about generous collaboration. And I would hope that out of this can come several really cool things that resonate with, maybe it's 2 people who are off and running on something, maybe it's 8 people, maybe it's the whole group is off in one way. But I think that when given the chance to explore and have free reign for kind of where does this go, I would hope that some really awesome, long-lasting things come out of this. And then I would also hope that some failures come out of this, that we are able together to take risks and learn, and so that we would be able to do that as well.
Well, I can feel your energy is going to be infectious, you know, as you connect with many of the colleagues we're bringing together. Is there anything, Lisa, in this time that we just had to connect and have this conversation that you'd like to share that I may not have touched upon as you think about this as part of your entry into connecting with the group of individuals we'll be spending the next year to possibly longer with?
Yeah, so I hope it is longer, possibly, you know, and I'm sure that there will be parts of it that are. So in some sense, you know, I really do, I've been part of some groups that are made up of kind of professional colleagues, but where all of that, who we are as professionals is, you know, kind of gone by the wayside. And so as you were saying that we bring our whole self, I'm also thinking that we bring our soccer coach role, that we bring our, you know, parent of a kid with disabilities, that we bring our caring for an aging parent, that we care our insomnia, I don't know what it is, but that we bring that whole self to us as well. And and see where it goes and be open to, you know, one of the other things that when I called my 3 colleagues before, when I got the question of how would your colleague introduce you, one of them also, one of the other things that they said is that you, Lisa, have a great ability to deal with ambiguity and then be able to focus that ambiguity into really concrete transformational change. And so I hope that there's some element of that we all bring and experience.
That is a real gift. I think that ambiguity is often in our culture something people, it's like conflict, right? We don't often sit well with it because we can't control it. We want to quickly move through it. And I think when we settle in those moments, so when we find brilliance in things we've never even envisioned we could.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and there's the quote that I love is, you know, our greatest fear is not that we're powerless, but it's that we're powerful beyond belief. And that's what that is really, you know, when you talked about the values, that is what I believe. And I know the power of people to create transformational change. And I've seen it, I've been a part of it. I've watched people who don't believe it become believers and who are, you know, incredibly transformed by that. So, and it's an interesting thing to wear this as my colleague was saying, you know, Lisa doesn't say the glass is half full or half empty. You know, what do you mean? It's nearly full. And, you know, that's an interesting thing to be talking about right now in these times. It's really hard. There are, you know, I hope we're going to see some seismic shifts in terms of the way that we relate to our Black and brown friends and colleagues and understand their lived experience and are open to that. And that we in this typically white college educated field can find a way, you know, the other thing that in addition to the thing that I used to say when I was in my 20s and kind of as I was getting going, I was like, I'm going to diversify this field. Like that's what I'm going to do. And I have no idea how I'm going to do it, but I really feel like it is up to us to be white allies and to make space and to create space for that. And so I think that, you know, and shifting norms, you know, we're doing Future Horizons like this, you know, and so the idea that we are flexible enough to pivot and to survive through time and to, again, you know, I know that it's easier for me right now because I am comfortable with ambiguity because this is a really, really uncertain time and a really frightening time. And so, and it's been frightening in so many ways for a long time, long time. But I think that it's really important that we learn to pivot and pivot well.